Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of a very interesting little piece right here. This is the Tag Heuer Monaco Steve McQueen model watch. The reference number is CAW211P.FC6356. Oh, flashy. But anyways, first off though, I want to thank very much my buddies over at Lewis Jewelers in Ann Arbor, Michigan. They have been my jewelers for a number of years now, and even now that I'm here in California, they are willing to loan stuff my way. So thank you so much for that. And they've been really good to me, and they can be really good to you too. Just talk to my buddy DK over there at Lewis. Tell him Nick Shabazz sent you. He'll offer you some special pricing on this and any other gem in your eye. Well, or on your wrist, ideally. So, there you go. Next thing, size comparison here. This is actually a reasonably sized watch. Although it looks really big and clunky, it's not actually that huge. Here it is against the Breitling Aerospace, which is another watch I've featured on this channel a number of times. Here it is against the Tudor Pelagos, which I really should have removed from my wrist in preparation for this. But you can see here, this is actually substantially smaller than the Pelagos. And let's go ahead and get some measurements on this guy right quick. Pull out my fancy calipers. The diameter on this guy is not a thing because it is a square. So instead, the overall width of this guy is about 39 millimeters on the square there. The lug-to-lug distance on it is not too much higher. It is about 47 millimeter lug-to-lug distance. The width of the face itself, which again is a little weird, doing this on square watches, coming in around like 31. And then the overall thickness of this guy at its thickest point is around 15 millimeters. So it's a little bit beefy, but the fact that it looks actually bigger than it is because it's square rather than round, etc. And so, yeah, there's the size comparison here. Then finally, a quick note. This is going to be a quick review. This is a watch that is fresh from the factory. Lewis Jewelers loaned it to me directly for review, but, I wasn't able to wear it out and about, spend a whole bunch of time with it. And so consider this to be first impressions on the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly side. So let's go ahead and talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly of this very, very interesting little watch right here. So first off, on the good side, this guy is a watch with some pretty unconventional brand ambassadors, so to speak. This is the same watch that was worn by Steve McQueen in the movie Le Mans. Stephen Colbert, the comedian, wore one of these guys, was associated with it. And then finally, Walter White of Breaking Bad definitely had this guy on his wrist for a part of the series. And so this is a solid watch, we can learn then, for racing, for joking, and for cooking of a sort. Interesting, right? Next thing, let's take a look at the lume on this guy. This guy is a watch that actually has lume to it. And I know what you're thinking, but Nick, I don't really see much of it, but they've done it. Here, I'll charge it off screen with a flashlight here so you can see what I'm talking about. And then if we cover this up, what you can see here is that every one of the hour indices here is lumed. Each and every one of them has a little pip of some kind of luminova sort of compound there. And that's really nice. And honestly, the lume is not bad at all. It's not a diver. It's not going to be, oh my God, melt your face off lume. But they have put a full set of lumed indices and hands on here, and that's really, really nice. I like lume a lot, and especially on a dressier watch like this guy, it's really nice to see them taking the effort to really lume this guy up a little bit and make it more nighttime legible. So I appreciate that very much. Next thing, the movement on this guy. This right here is the Tag Heuer Caliber 11. This is based on a Sellita SW300 or ETA 2892, but it's got a chrono module put on the top of it there. But this offers a number of different, it's a mechanical movement, obviously, as you see in here, but it offers a number of different features here, most of which are very nice. You have, for instance, the date feature, complete with quick set. So if I take this out of the first position, you can see here the date is going to change. There we go. And the date has now changed to the 9th. It'd be much better if I changed the minute hand. Here, I'll show you one more time. But anyways, so it's got a quick set date feature, which is really great if you happen to be behind the times there, so to speak. That lets you get back up to speed quickly. It hacks, so you can see here as I pulled the crown at the third position, the second position, I suppose, depending on whether you start from 0. But anyways, the second hand does stop, and then it resumes when you press it back in there. That's good. You have yourself either the option to hand wind the watch, or it will charge automatically by virtue of that weight that you see swinging around in the back there, which is nice. Has a 40-hour power reserve, which is fine, and it offers, most importantly, a 30-minute chronograph here. So if I got this guy running, I can just click this top button here, and you can see this big red seconds hand in the middle starts running. And we'll just keep it running, and we'll see that this little guy over here will time out the minutes as the second hand times out the seconds. And so that's nice. It's a nice movement with a lot of different nice features in there, and so no argument there. Next thing, this does have the open case back, which I was just showing off there, and honestly, this is a nice thing. Because one of the joys, at least to my mind, of owning a mechanical watch is that micro-mechanical machine that's on your wrist all the time. And, sometimes I think there's something lost by having watches where the case back is just metal. It just hides all of that entirely, whereas this guy, this is really showing something. So I like that very much. And the fact they've also done a little bit of finishing on the movement here. I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit so you can see they've done a little bit of perlage there on the top of the bridges. They've, the occasional little bits of polishing, especially that back plate looks pretty nice. It's not a high fancy figured movement or anything like that, but it does look nice, and it really does reinforce one of the joys of having a mechanical watch. So that's good. Next thing on this guy is that there are some very nice details, and actually I'll just stay zoomed in here. So we can see here that in addition to, just the fact that it's a good old-fashioned retro design, you have a mix of painted-on indices with the white Lume paint here as well as the red. You also have these nice reflective metallic indices here. You can see them around the side, laying kind of horizontally, which is an unusual choice, but I think one that really did grow on me over time. But those are very nicely polished up and really do catch the eye, and they're applied and whatnot. It's got the white subdials, which is nice, although the subdials almost have a sense of a silveriness to them. I don't think they're actually white so much as maybe a very highly satin sort of metal. I don't know what's going on there, but it's nice, maybe blasted. And the hands on this guy are complex. So you can see that not only are they multi-part, but they're bent, so that, one of the areas is, they're a little offset, which helps for nighttime legibility. There is some polish, there is some Lume, there is some red. The hands are they're really nice there. And honestly, throughout the entire watch, there is a beautiful mix of brushing as well as beautiful polishing. It feels like, look at the back of this guy, this nice contrast between brushed, polished. Oh, they're doing good work. And so honestly, there are some really nice finishing details, and the kinds of things that you would expect at this sort of price point are absolutely present, and that's absolutely great. Next thing, this guy actually uses a left-hand crown. What that just means is that instead of having the crown over here, it's over here. This is a nice thing, honestly, because what it means is that there's less on your wrist. As you wear this watch, as this guy sits on your wrist, and your wrist kind of comes up, sometimes a crown can poke at you a little bit there, especially if the watch isn't perfectly fit to your wrist at the moment. And so that gets a little uncomfortable, but by having the chrono pushes up to the top here on either side and then having this on the back, it's just a great ergonomic choice. I think it makes the watch a lot nicer on the wrist than it would have otherwise been, and so that's something I absolutely support. Then finally, actually no, not quite finally, this guy has the Heuer branding on this guy, which is kind of a throwback sort of thing. It's a cheap little detail that they can do rather than having tag Heuer, it's just plain Heuer. But it's a nice throwback to what the watch was originally released as, and that's nice. It has a Breitling style deployant, so the bracelet on this guy, again, note the Heuer branding, is a deployant clasp, which I've kind of undone here so I can set it flat down on the table. But it's using a Breitling style deployant where you basically will feed this through. And here I'll put that in there. And then what you do is, I'm going the wrong direction because I'm an idiot. Whoops. Sorry, I'm not used to this kind. But anyways, what you'll do is you feed this guy through, as I say that over and over again, because each time it's going to make it more likely that I feed this guy through. You feed this guy through. There we go. And what you're able to do then is kind of tighten this down, and then you can just put and what this basically allows you to do, the upshot of my being not a brilliant man, yeah, you'll snap this down. I don't want to injure the strap or anything like that. But the upside of that is that you have continuous adjustment on this strap. You can basically set this guy to go anywhere, at whatever tightness you'd like. And although you shouldn't need to adjust it very often because it's a deployant clasp, it just kind of pops open and closed again using these two buttons on the side there. It means that you have a perfect adjustment for your wrist the first time, and that can stay that way. And if you need to adjust it down the road, you don't need to go to a jeweler, you don't need to resize anything, you just slide a little bit more of the fabric in or out, or the leather in or out, bam, there you go. And so I like that very much as a deploying clasp option. And finally, on this guy, this is kind of a hard thing to characterize, but this is one of those watches. There are watches where you take one look at them in a jewelry store and you kind of have the full sense of them. Or it's like, there's not that much going on, playing with the light, etc. The colors aren't all that unique. And, there are beautiful watches that feel that way, but this is one of those watches where I looked at it a number of times in a jewelry store and it looks fine, it looks good. But then I actually handled one. I brought it out into the sunlight, which can be a major test, can make a watch look way better. And this is one of those that looks way better. When you do that, this watch is just more attractive, flat out. It just improves. And so, now that I've seen this outside the store, I like it a lot more than just looking at it in those kind of controlled lighting conditions, because it really does play with the light very well off all these reflective surfaces. So, there you go. And to me, that's the good, is that this has it's one of the watches that's more attractive outside the store. It's got a Breitling style deployant that I completely failed to show off adequately during the course of this review for lack of time. It has the Heuer branding, which is a nice little throwback there. The left-hand crown with the pushes spread apart are great on the wrist. Some very nice details, an open case back, the tag caliber 11 with Lume, and some pretty unconventional brand ambassadors. On the great side, to me, this watch is kind of unique. I know of no other watch that looks like this one. It's retro, absolutely unapologetically retro, like a 1940s era or so. But the thing is, it's really cool. And it's proof that, hey, math majors, you can't actually square a circle. Huh? Yeah, I know better, I know. But still, nevertheless, I like this guy very, very much. It is a really nice looking thing. It's super attractive, and it's very, very unusual. It's unique. It's different than anything else out there in the watch market, in my estimation, or at least that I've seen in the mass market. And to me, I love that very much. And to me, that's what's great here, is that it is absolutely its own unique thing. Okay, on the bad side, or some bad things, there are a few things I do struggle with here with the price. Start with, this is not given an anti-magnetic rating. Probably not an anti-magnetic air spring or anything like that. They don't talk about it, so generally speaking, that's not a thing. And that's starting to feel lacking when you get at this kind of price point. Similarly, a 40-hour power reserve, that's good, but it's not great. And at $6,000, you need to be pushing towards great. Next thing, the movement on this guy, like I said, it's not super, oh my god, high figured. And if you compare that to other watches for $6,000, you can definitely do a lot better in movement decoration. But you know what? It's fine. It is what it is. I can deal with it, I guess. But all of those things are a little bit of a struggle given the price of this guy. More problematic are things like, for instance, this is using a 30-minute chronograph. So as you can see here, we've been running this for, well, actually, we know exactly how long we've been running this guy for. But we've been running this for a little while here. Looks to be about 7 minutes or so. And the, math is hard on channel. But anyways, what this means, though, is that you do not get like an hour hand. You do not know exactly how long this has been running if it keeps running after 30 minutes. It'll just run and run and run, keep going around the 30-minute dial. And you might have a sense of, oh, well, I started at 2, and it's gone around, it's 45 now. You can do the math. But for a lot of people, 30 minutes is actually not a long time to be timing things. People trying to time a meeting at work, a time pizza delivery arrival, things like that, 30 minutes won't necessarily get you there. And so you'll have to think about your timing needs. If everything you're doing is lap times at Le Mans and 30 minutes is more than enough, then I assume that is at Le Mans. I don't know, I've never been to Le Mans. But anyways, you have to think about that. Speaking of thinking about that, this is a Chrono watch, and I always make a point of when I talk to people about Chronos, just reset the Chrono, by the way, this is something that you want to think carefully about, whether you actually want a Chrono or not. Because chronos add complexity to the movement. They increase the cost of the watch, generally speaking, and they add cost to the service, generally. It costs a little bit more to service a chrono, etc., and you're paying for the price. And so, if you're one of the people who, might time something 3 times a year, it may be better to buy a more conventional 3-hand sort of watch for a slightly better price, and then, use that extra money to buy a really nice cell phone that you can time things with, too. But you know what? That's just something to consider. A chronograph is certainly a complication, and you may want to ask yourself if you need that complexity. Next thing, this guy is a chunky watch. It's not terrible, and honestly, even compared to some of the other watches I do wear, like this Pelagos, this doesn't actually, although it looks pretty chunky, it wears reasonably comfortably. which is nice. But that is something you're going to want to keep in mind, and particularly with this very prominent square crystal on this guy. So what you can see here is that the metal case actually stops, and a big portion of the height of this watch comes from this beautiful domed metal crystal. By the way, I mean, it looks freaking gorgeous at many angles. But still, you've got this curved, domed, beautiful sapphire crystal on this guy. And honestly, this is always a little bit frightening to me. Having these really prominent crystals, especially with actual corners, although they are chamfered and whatnot, is always, it makes me worry that I'm going to clip a corner, clip a door frame, and shatter the whole affair. Now look, this is not meant to be a tool watch. This is not a watch that you're going to want to be, trying to destroy on a regular basis, mostly because it's $6,000. But honestly, the really tall crystal thing doesn't tend to do it for me, and it just feels like a point of weakness relative to having a more recessed crystal. It may be that that's just the way that, but whatever, it's a thing, but it may be a thing for you. One of the biggest things about this guy is that it is a $5,900 watch. Look, that's a lot of freaking cash. You should buy from an authorized distributor, absolutely, and you probably shouldn't pay retail, though. I mean, talk to your local AD, talk to my buddy DK over Lewis. He'll help you out a little bit, but that's still, no matter, even if you do get a deal, that is a bunch of cash, and it is right at the top of TAG's range. And sometimes buying at the top of a brand's range, particularly in terms of models, can be a little bit tough because you're paying just as much as some of your higher-end brands, but it might be still built with some finishing details like a lower end. I mean, I'm reminded of the difference in finishing here on this guy relative to the Omega Planet Ocean, which was just a lot nicer finished in the back there. This is finished like you would expect of a $3,000 tag, but it's a $6,000 watch. It's not a big thing, but absolutely, and this is mostly a well-done piece, but that's a lot of freaking money, and you just have to think very carefully about whether you want to spend that much money for a tag, for reasons we'll talk about in a little bit here. But to me, all of that is the bad, is that $5,900 in retail price seems pretty steep. It's got a very prominent square crystal sticking up above there. It's very chunky. Most people, well, many people may not want a chrono anyways. It's only a 30-minute chronograph, and there are some things that feel a little like cut corners at this kind of a price point. On the ugly front, there are two big issues here. To start with, this watch is not accuracy certified. It does not have a COSC certification. It doesn't even on their website have some kind of verbiage like, and look, I don't require you to give, COSC certification or METAS or whatever the heck. I don't require, something like that. But what I want is for the maker to say something like, this is going to be within plus or minus 4 seconds a day on the wrist. And if it isn't, we're going to make it right. Because in my opinion, anytime you break $1,000, you need to be making actionable guarantees on accuracy. If I buy a $6,000 watch and it's not running accurate, that's a big freaking problem. Now, mind you, this particular watch right here on my table is running anywhere between negative 1.5 and negative 18 seconds per day, depending on the position on the wrist of the table. I think it's generally going to average out to being not too far out of the COSC spec, but the thing is, at $6,000, you need to be on freaking point for timekeeping, and given that every other brand at this kind of price point is doing some kind of accuracy certification, honestly, that's feeling lazy. The tag, you need to up your game there, and even if you're not going to certify it, you need to at least guarantee it within your company so we can do better. So that's not great. The other ugly issue is not about this watch at all, but it's about Tag Heuer in general, and that is that tags tend to take a huge hit on the secondary market. This guy, retail price about $6,000, but I'm seeing these guys going on forums and such for about $3,500 to $4,000, depending on the condition. What that means is that if you walk out of the store after buying this guy retail at $6,000, and then you turn around and the next day you sell it like new in box on a forum, you just lost about $2,000. This is often the case with luxury goods, but TAG particularly doesn't have, it's got a very soft secondary market, especially compared to companies like Rolex or Tudor or even Omega to an extent. TAG, you're going to take a bath. And so the simple fact is that if you're going to buy this watch, you need to buy it for keeps. Otherwise, you're going to take a pretty big hit if you try and turn around and sell it. It's not on the watch, but it is definitely a sign that maybe the price on this guy is a little higher than the community is willing to take. So to me, those are the two ugly things, is that there is a huge hit on the secondary market, and that this is a $6,000 watch without any kind of accuracy certification. And no, that's just not allowed to happen, guys. I'm sorry. Look, final conclusions on this. This is a very nice watch in a lot of ways. I mean, it is keeping time reasonably for a mechanical and whatnot. It is a chronograph. It has lume. It's legible. It's well finished. But the thing that this watch has more than anything else is flavor. This is a flavorful watch. Now, mind you, I'm not saying it's like freaking zesty or anything like that. I'm not licking this watch. Don't worry, DK. But this is unique. This is different. There are so many watches out there in the world that feel like they are variations on a theme. I mean, so many of the divers are just like, wow, that's a different way to make something that looks a little bit like a Rolex sub. Oh, you talk about the differentiation in terms of details. Oh, no, no. This one has lollipop hands. This one has... And those are fine. Those are interesting, but that's the point. It feels like 50 gallons of vanilla. It's not what you're after here. But this guy, this is unique. This is different. This is its own damn thing. You look at this guy and you're like, huh. Okay, and the thing is that's good because it's going to be much more compelling to people for whom this is really compelling. But it's not great because some people are really going to hate the flavor of this guy. The wife, for instance, really didn't care for it, even though I think it's quite attractive. So it's not to all tastes. But the thing is, it is unique. It is clearing its own path. It is flavorful, and that is something I really do appreciate. And I think that is really what sets this guy apart. There are downsides to the watch in general as well. I mean, 30-minute chronos, not limited use. It's chunky. They're not certifying accuracy. It's pricey. And a good chunk of that price is just going to go pop when you walk out the door. But the thing is, there is a lot to love here. The biggest issue, maybe, though, that this guy has is the competition. There are a lot of really nice watches at $6,000. And even chronos. For $6,000, actually for $5,200, you can pick up brand new in box an Omega Speedmaster, Professional with the Hezolite and everything like that. Boom, right there. You are looking at, $5,200. And that's one of the most recognizable chronos on earth. One of the other ones is the Breitling Navitimer, which is a really great watch. I have a review of a higher end model of that, but nevertheless, you can get into a Breitling Navitimer for $6,000. And that one is going to be certified accurate, and that's a really, really iconic watch as well. And of course, if you're willing to go away from this design, you can get a lot of cheaper chronos from other companies, even from TAG. TAG has a lot of really inexpensive, pretty excellent chronos lower down in their range. And heck, if you really need a chronograph and you don't want to spend a lot of money, there is always the Casio F91W, which is absolutely a chrono. But that's beside the point there. The competition for this is very, very strong. And at $6,000, this is really... It's a good thing this is really unique looking. But the thing is, that's what it comes down to, is this is really unique looking. This is going to be a watch that you buy not because it brings something functionally different to the table. Not a watch that you buy because, oh my God, the finishing. It's not a watch that you buy. This is a watch that you buy because nobody else is making a watch that looks like this one. And because this particular watch is really calling to you and you're just like, oh yes, I need that on my wrist. And so that's why you buy this guy, because you love what it and only it has, and you love that look. So if you love the look and you can stomach the price and you plan to hold on to it for a lifetime, then you know what? It might not be a bad idea to Heuer this guy for all your chronographing needs. Anyways, thank you very much, Lewis Jewelers, for giving me a chance to check this guy out. Hope this was interesting to you and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful day. And thanks for tagging along on this journey. Bye now.